So, so today I just want to show you a little bit about review screens and how those work. A review screen is just like any other type of Docassemble question. Usually we use it with an event tag that allows you to visit it by clicking a link or another button without having to click continue on that screen itself. And rather than the fields specifier, we use review. The special thing about a review screen is that you can include questions on a review screen that are not yet defined, and Docassemble will only show you the ones that have a definition already. Let me give you an example. The normal way to reach a review screen is by using these section labels on the left. If I go ahead and run this interview here, and I just define a couple of things up front with this special umbrella that I have, click continue. Now I'm going to go to the basic information section, which I use the event tag to connect up. So it's called section basic inside my code where I define all the different section labels, which I'll just show you where that is too. So all of the review screens have to use a label like this, where it has the variable you're looking for that maps onto the event, and then on the right you can have just a plain text description of what that section will look like on the left. So when I click that basic information screen, it's going to look for a variable that's called, what did I call it exactly actually? Section underscore basic, and that's defined by that event screen. And in my predefined variables, I said that the form was to protect me. So if I click edit who's protecting, I can change that. It's going to update it here and say the new information. I click resume, I get back to the next part of the interview, which in our interview, we said if you have it to protect someone else, you need to answer these two follow-up questions. So let's do that now. So let's call myself Bob Advocate, and I am a DB advocate. I get this other follow-up question I need to answer as well. And now if I go back to my review screen here, I have two questions that I can edit. And I can change those answers here. Maybe I want to say that I work for Project Hope. Just going to check to make sure this is still going. Okay. All right, so that's the basics of review screens. You list the variables that you want to edit. You have a little bit of text that describes some context for the variable, and you can include things that aren't defined yet. And Docassemble will only show you the things that are defined. So let me show you how I build one of those review screens. We're going to add a couple more fields here to that list. I like this style here with the buttons. There are other styles that you can use. They're all defined here in this review screen section on the setting variables area of the Docassemble help. And there's quite a lot to it. There's several different styles of questions. You can use this question here where you click a link instead of having the button. I like this style. That's under here, under customizing the display of review options. So I'm actually going to link that here in our sample here and just explain that. I like this style. There's no reason that we have to use that. The purpose of this particular form here is just to make sure people can edit those answers, and if we don't get a response, that's not the end of the world. Let me just say one more thing about these review screens. So there's all kinds of advanced things you can do with them. You can say when you want to show certain questions, if that's relevant, like for a note. You can show or hide whole sections and have them organized with headings, like this one here, where it says your identity, your favorite foods. Those are notes that are hidden depending on whether that section is relevant. And that's something you have to do manually. Let's see. That's the main information you need. You can sometimes have variables that are calculated, like a variable here for this salad example. Salad is based on, let me see, I think I have an example here. You might want to recompute something, like salad was based on choosing 2 different vegetables, and it's done in code. It's not questions the user answers on their own. So if you want Docassemble to recompute an answer like that, you have to tell it that you want it to do that. We'll get to that later, I'm sure. Let's start by looking through the variables that are really considered to be basic facts about the person and the other party. So those are all here under this section here where I have skipping parties. So name of, let's say edit name again. And this time it's going to be users0.name.first. It's the variable that we're going to change. And then make a button. To get that button on the right-hand side, right aligned in the next to the explanation text. And I'm going to just say, you said your name was person protected is users. And we're going to also have to change the name of the other parties. That's another question we asked right away. Now, just like any other, like the code block that we use to control the order of questions, we need to have this variable here on the right, next to the label of the variable. It just has to be one variable on the screen that we want to trigger. Okay, so we don't have to list each individual variable. So we could have like user.name.first, .middle, .last, .suffix. We don't need to do that because all of those questions are defined on the same screen. If you think there's a chance where that wouldn't happen, where there's 2 versions of the same question, then you can be more explicit and list exactly which things should be followed up. And you can do that with one button still. I don't think we're going to need to do that very much, though, so let's leave it like this for now. So we have the name, we have, okay, person you need protection from is other parties. And then we have these follow-up questions here. Let's do those in that order. I think that's a pretty logical way to do it, to kind of follow the order of the interview. So we have so we're going to just really be able to copy this whole question for the name of the other party. That's going to be defendant is major. Just have to change the pronouns. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? We had some questions about the defendant's gender and whether they had any other names, so that makes sense to go right after. So I'm using this long format with the if and the else because it's going to help our translators later. It's a little clunky. There's other shorter ways I could write this, but this is the best way to write it for us to be able to translate it later. So I'm going to say if, if defendant has alias. I can combine two things on one screen because they're on the same screen. Does as the alias, we're going to have that follow-up if they have an alias, so we know, okay, so what is it? Other parties.name other. Okay, so now we want to have that follow-up question that shows the alias as a separate thing. So those are separate questions, so we have to do them like that. And let's just go ahead and save this. We're going to let it sync up to our Docassemble server. I'm going to do a sync, and this time let's not try to do the sync and run because of that little lag that it had. Oh, so those questions actually were on the same screen, so I'm going to delete that follow-up there. We don't need that other name question because it's all on one screen. I couldn't remember that they were on one screen. Okay, so that's kind of unclear to have two buttons that take you to the same page. I can change these things. Say if I say no. Something's wrong with that logic there. Okay. So that one's working, so I must have just written that incorrectly here. Oh, it's if defendant is major, is what we're editing. Okay. I was editing the wrong screen. So that's something to watch out for, just to make sure you get your variables lined up correctly. That's basically what we need to do. I think we asked for gender. Let me just check if that's on the same screen, because then I might want to follow up with that information on the same screen. I did. So all those questions were on one place. but still it may be worth having separate buttons for them. So actually, the variable that we want to edit is just called gender. So that's going to either show male or female in lowercase, and I'm okay with that for now. It won't be translated. But we could write that out, just like we did with these if statements. That would be probably a better option. Let me just show you one more kind of review screen, and because they work a little bit different. So a review screen for the children would look pretty different, I think. A review screen for a checkbox will look a little bit different. So let's do those two. Put them on their own section label. So we have a whole section called children, so let's do that one first. And I believe I labeled it the same way. Let's just check. So I called it section children. So that's going to be the name that I give my review screen, the event. Again, remember we start with that review specifier rather than fields. So I'm going to have the name of the button first. And this whole section about children is triggered by the person saying that they have children, of course. So let's see, what did we have the actual variable here? Plaintiff has minor children. I think there's not really a good way to say edit having children, so I'm just going to leave that there, and the context below will make sense. So this is a long process in Docassemble to be able to have these review screens. You can get really specific and detailed with it, but it can be a little cumbersome to do. So there are other approaches that we could take, but I think this is worth doing for now manually to get a higher quality product. And the automated ones are going to potentially have some problems. Maybe we can think about that a little bit later. Okay, so now we want to see the actual list of kids. So this is only going to be the case if, let me see, what am I editing here? So I'm thinking about this some more, and I actually don't think I'm going to use a regular review screen here. I'm going to use just a regular old questions and sub-question here on an event page, and it will work essentially the same way. I'm going to use a table that shows all the names of the kids instead. So this is just a way to show you that Docassemble's review screens can be used to do some handy things, but you don't need to if your point is to let someone revisit questions. We can use those section labels to go to any screen that that we want them to go to, and it essentially acts as a review screen. So for like a really simple interview, just having those links on the left go to each one for each question would be a way to go about it. But here I realized to display information and edit information in the table, it's going to be a lot better to do it this way. Okay, so I'm going to make just a plain old link here that says change response, and it'll be just URL action. So URL action does the same thing that the edit button does in a review screen. It'll take me to a place where I can change that answer. Okay, now I would like to use a special kind of block in Docassemble that's called a table block. I'm going to add it as an attribute on the children list. The rows are going to be made by the children. Columns are going to be name, age, and see. I could say something like this, child of, it's a little bit shorter. Okay, so I'm going to look at the syntax of this again, because it's always good to double check. It's something that you just do occasionally. So this is all defined here under initial blocks. The table block. Okay, so I could show we have this special variable that's created called row item. And we're going to use Python code. So it's going to go on to more than one line, I think, but we don't need to. So I'm just going to do row item.name. And I'm going to do the whole name of the person instead. Row item.age in years. Actually, I want to just change that to birth date. And I want to format it. I think it will automatically do that, but it's not a bad idea. And it's going to be row item dot defendant is parent. I'm going to make it into a word by using the yes/no function. And I'm going to do dot title. I'm pretty sure that's the right syntax. Let me just double check that. Yeah. So dot title will turn a string, which is going to be yes/no, into title case. So I want it to have an initial capital here, because I think it will look weird if it's lowercase yes/no. That I think is pretty good. So then below here, I also say how to edit that. It's going to be name.first. It's really all we need. We can change You can include the other ones. Name dot or birth date. So this is the attribute of the object that we're changing here. We don't have to write out children 0.name.first. We just write down the attribute we want to change. Defendant is parent. So now, in order for this screen to be able to show, I have to make sure that I don't have anything on there that would not be defined. It's not like the review screen in that respect. That's one of the big differences. So if plaintiff has been our children, then we're going to show this table. So we're going to just, all we have to do that is just refer to children.table. And we can use the add action. That will automatically put a link in there that says add another. If I'm remembering the syntax right, at least. Just check that. Yeah. So that's the normal way to use a table like that, is to have the add action at the bottom. And then all gets translated. This is going to display a formatted table with the column headings and the data for each child on that list. So now we have two kinds of children we're talking about. So what is the way that we ask that about the other children? Let's see. That's all part of page 2 of the 209A package. I can find it out from here. Children cares for. So I think there's a situation in which we would never even see that question, since it's going to use the defined. So I'm going to make a very similar table to this one. And it's going to be for children of other rather than just children. For children cares for, sorry. All the other variables are the same. And let me just make sure that I'm doing that right as far as the rows go. Pretty sure I am. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the reason why I was double checking is this throws me off a little bit, but I think it's the simplest way. So keeping the table itself as an attribute of the list is really neat, but you don't need to. So there's no way for Docassemble to know that these two things are related, children.table and children. This is telling us what list we want to use. This is telling us the variable name we give to the table, so we can refer to it later. They can be connected or not. We're going to keep them connected because it just makes the most sense to do. Okay, so this should be what we need. Let's just include this. What did we call it? Children cares for. And the variable stored in the table variable is an attribute. And again, we want to have and what that does is give us a link to let us add another child. Okay, so I want to give this a heading because we have two different kinds of kids that we were talking about. I like to use heading level 3 usually inside a sub-question. Or heading level 4 actually maybe is better even. Children who you take care of that you are not the parent of. And I'm realizing I need to have a couple other things here. So I have to let people change whether they have any kids and how many they have of each of these. Well, let me think about this. Children. I'm going to put this up top. So if they answered that plaintiff has minor children question, then they definitely answered whether they have, how many the kids they have. So I'm going to make that a link to let them change it. Actually, let's keep it as a number, but let's just make it bold so it's easier to pick it out and click on it, even though the change helps, but it's not enough. But I think we want it to be 0, 1, etc. Not written out, but as a number. So we're going to have plaintiff has minor children. Okay, so we have target numbers we want to change here. The link is going to be the link to change that. So again, URL action, inside quotes, then we have the variable we want the URL action to go to. Okay, I think we got all of the matching brackets. Let me just make sure. So we have 1, 2, open, close. Perfect. Okay. And you are the parent of, and it's going to be essentially the same, so we can just copy this. And it's going to be children cares for rather than children. And same here, children cares for. Okay, that was a lot, and that's really the most complicated section. We only have like 2 or 3 of those tables, so you don't probably need to do that. It's something that you can ask for my help with. You're probably going to focus on these more straightforward review screens, but it's part of what we need to do. So I'm going to sync this. Now I'm going to go back and run this over again. And this time I'm going to include this questions about children, have those be predefined so I can edit that section. Okay. Now one thing I'm noticing here is I don't have that section triggered yet, so it doesn't let me edit it, which is something I can change a different way, actually, I just realized. Think about that. Why hasn't it done that? Well, an easy way for me to do that for now, that's not something that you need to worry about. The easy way for me to do that right now is just to go ahead and skip more of these sections, I think. I believe that worked. Okay. So this is looking pretty good. I see that I have some formatting problems with these links. So let me take a look at that and see if I can figure out what I did wrong there. I think probably it is just... Okay, so here I didn't put it inside round brackets at all. And here I think the problem is that I have those bold symbols on the wrong side of the round brackets. Let's save that. I'm looking to see when that refreshes. It is synced up to Google. So if someone gets to the point where they're working on these and they need some help, I'm happy to help, because we really do need these for the production interview. Okay, perfect. Change that number here to 3. And what it doesn't do is that follow-up behavior, which would be kind of nice, right? So it doesn't automatically change the prompt me to add another person on the list. Okay, and I'm also noticing here I have review information about your children. It's not a review screen, so we don't automatically get the resume button. So I want to add that at the end here. Instead of it having to be an event, I really should make it a continue button label. Continue button field. I'm going to put it up there just to be consistent with the other one. And I want to change the continue button label as well. So I want to use the word resume rather than continue, but to make it clear what's going on with that section. So let's just refresh and see those changes. We might want to show this screen in context right after they've done the section about children to make sure they can catch any mistakes before they move on, rather than just have it be something they click on after here. But okay, so now we have everything that we need here. We have the ability to see all these questions. I don't see the continue button at the bottom, but I think that's just, again, because of the little delay in getting that up to Docassemble when we sync it from Google Drive. Now I do, and it says resume. I can add another. I don't know that that will change the target number, if that's really the way I wanted to do that. Let's just check this out. I might need a standalone question. Okay, that's something. This is really good to test, so I can figure out why that is triggering a loop. Could be because something about this here where we're showing the current children. So this is somehow requiring the definition of the kid, which I don't quite understand why, but we'll figure that out later. Again, these kinds of review screens are probably not ones you need to do. May not have been the best example to show, but it just shows you what you can do and how much you can customize what this looks like. All right, I'm going to stop the recording there, and please do ask if you have any questions on Slack.